Hello everyone, and welcome back to Gamers Among Us. This is Calamity Code, and today we're looking at some video game series that we think need a good reboot. With this generation in gaming, we've definitely seen a trend towards HD remakes and reboots, and there have even already been some fantastic reboots with games like God of War, Resident Evil 7, Doom, and Prey. Some people complain about the amount of these being made, but I for one am all for it, because some of these series have an absolutely insane amount of lore that was created for them, a lot of which seemingly goes to waste. There are so many characters and worlds out there fit for more exploration, at least in my humble opinion. So here are 5 game series that I would love to come back to. Number 5. Infamous. When the original Infamous game first exploded into our lives back in 2009, it shook up the formula for open world action games. It introduced a level of player choice that none of its predecessors had imagined, and it put the power of a superhero, or a villain, into your hands in a way no other game could. A sequel in 2011 further cemented Cole's place in our hearts, as the series introduced even more powers to utilize and characters to fall in love with. The series is filled to the brim with a true comic book superhero-like energy, playing out just like a lot of our favorite comic stories, even earning itself an official DC published book. How cool is that? The series was more or less rebooted in 2014 with Infamous Second Son, which starred a new character with tons of new powers. With generally favorable reviews and lots of hints at future expansions or sequels that simply never happened, it's odd that 5 years later, Infamous seems to have vanished. We know that the developers at Sucker Punch Productions have switched gears to work on the upcoming and highly anticipated game Ghost of Tsushima, but I find it really hard to believe that such a highly praised series could remain forgotten for too much longer. There's just so much that can be done in such a beautifully crafted world, and sometimes we just need a good superhero game, at least one that isn't bound by years of already established lore like Spider-Man. Number 4. Okami. For number 4 on our list, we have Okami, Capcom's clever adventure game originally released in 2006 for the PlayStation 2. Following Amaterasu, the Japanese deity known as the Goddess of the Sun, we wandered an unforgettable world, splashed across our screen in a cel-shaded watercolor style, solving all sorts of puzzles and battling all sorts of baddies. You wield what's known as the Celestial Brush, a paintbrush with the power to interact directly with the world around you, which made for some of the most unique gameplay in an action-adventure game we'd ever seen. This title has won all sorts of awards, and is remembered lovingly by a huge following of fans who are howling at the moon for more. It has been ported in HD for the latest console generations, so it's easy to get your hands on this masterpiece if you haven't tried it out. Now there was a sequel released in 2010 for the Nintendo DS, but unfortunately most fans don't believe the sequel did the game justice. It was more of the same, and being a handheld release, it didn't really get much freedom to truly stretch its legs. 9 years later, we're still holding out hope that we'll see a return of the series in a true, fully realized reboot on modern consoles. Number 3. Onimusha. Following up with another classic set in Japan's lush history, we have Onimusha, a series of action games full of puzzle solving and demon slaying that saw its first release in 2001. There are 4 core games in the series, as well as a strategy game for the Game Boy Advance, and a fighting game similar to Super Smash Bros. Or PlayStation All-Stars for the PlayStation 2. This series actually pulls from actual Japanese history, and it adds supernatural elements, which makes for some of the greatest storytelling we've ever seen from this era in history. Most fans will remember the biggest protagonist, Samanosuke, who was the hero of both Onimusha Warlords and Onimusha 3 Demon Siege. The second and the fourth entries featured different characters, but within the lore you can find that all the games are connected in one way or another. We also recently saw an HD port of this game, well, the first one in the series, Onimusha Warlords, which gave us a rush of nostalgia for these beloved games. At the time of their release, they were some of the best action games money could buy, and with Capcom recently releasing a new entry to their Devil May Cry series, it feels like the perfect time for an Onimusha reboot. Please, Capcom, let the fans be heard. We're all clamoring for the rest of the games to be remade in HD like the first one was, but a true reboot of the franchise would mean so much more. We won't even ask you to bring back Jean Reno. We promise.
Je dois te laisser, Henri.
Number 2. Portal. Second on our list is one of the most highly acclaimed video game series in existence. 12 years ago, Valve Corporation flipped the world of puzzle platformers on its head with Portal, a game that has spawned more Easter eggs and memes than, well, anything. Seriously, it's been referenced in other games, shows, and everything else far more times than I can count. Full of dark humor and clever puzzles, both Portal games were bursting with creativity, and have produced some of the most memorable characters in history.
Most test subjects do experience some cognitive deterioration after a few months in suspension. Now, you've been under for quite a lot longer, and it's not out of the question that you might have a very minor case of serious brain damage.
It's also set in the same universe as another fan favorite, the Half-Life series, which would have been on this list if it weren't so obvious. With Portal 2 in 2011, the series seems to have reached the end of its very short but enormously impactful life. Shortly after its release, Valve switched focus to their Steam platform rather than single-player games, and the rest is unfortunate history. Many people still hold out hope that we'll get to jump back into GLaDOS' labyrinth of insanity and, well, portals, but without any inkling of a hint that it could happen, it seems unlikely. The cake was not a lie, and the thousands of fans still talking about Portal can attest to that. Number 1. BioShock. Finally, for our top series that we believe needs a reboot, we have BioShock. Now, this one is probably the most likely of the 5 to actually receive a reboot, or even a possible sequel. It has been hinted at, first in a Kotaku article in April of 2018, and again more recently from an analyst who correctly predicted a new Borderlands game, alongside a new Rockstar title and a new BioShock game for the year 2020. The working title for this project has been said to be Parkside, which is based on the name for the secret studio that's working on it. We've decided to keep it here on this list though because nothing is official until it's official. The first title in this series was released over 10 years ago in 2007. BioShock introduced us to a breathtaking world hiding under the ocean called Rapture. Here we blazed our way through a meticulously detailed utopia full of life and, well, death. Lots and lots of death. We won't spoil anything for you here, but it also had one of the most shocking twist endings we'd ever experienced in a game at the time. And really, it's only been topped so far by the third entry in the very same series, BioShock Infinite. From Rapture down low to Columbia up high, gamers will forever remember the lumbering big daddies and anxiety-inducing splicers that made our lives terrifying and miserable for the many hours we poured into the series. It truly is one of our favorite game worlds ever, and we would love to see it again in a new way. 2K Games,
would you kindly
consider letting us know what you've got planned? And there we have it, everyone. GAU's top 5 games that we believe are in need of a good reboot. Do you agree with what we chose for this list? Is there anything you'd like to add or remove? Let us know in the comments, or feel free to join our Discord or the growing Facebook group so you can discuss these series with our community. We're always open to new members, and we'd love to have you. This has been Calamity Code with Gamers Among Us, and we'll see you next time.